Back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. Tonight, Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. Central Time, we're going to be hanging out for the next, 40, 50 minutes or so. We're back on our best ball grind here. We're going to be continuing to do some drafters $1,000,003 contests here. It's a $15 entry, $500K to first. If you guys are not on drafters yet, go ahead and use the link in the description. There's a promo code for you guys there. I believe you get you get a 50% deposit match bonus up to $100. So if you put $200 in, you'll get your extra $100 after you play some games. So check out drafters.com, and I'm going to hop into a screen share here. I got the fourth pick in this one, which I'm cool with. I think for the most part, I kind of want a top 6 or 7 pick, and I don't really care where it is in that top 6 or 7, but I'm happy with, that 3, 4, 5 range. I think that's a good range to be in this year. So let me just align my boxes a little bit. And we got the fourth pick. This is I kind of keep the stats on where I draft in this contest, and so far I've gotten this 12% of the time, which is fine with me. I've gotten a lot of 8s these last week or so. I've just been getting hammered with 8, 9s, and 10s, which are not my favorite. So I'm happy to see a fourth overall pick coming in here. But come on in, settle down. We are underway here. We'll do some zooming. We'll talk some ADP, throughout the show as well. I'm up to pick here soon, so we'll kind of wait for that. I do think there's some interesting risers and fallers from the past 7 days that we'll talk about. But it looks like CeeDee Lamb, seeing CeeDee Lamb go 101 a good amount in these drafts lately. And then Ja'Marr Chase goes number 3. That leaves me with Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown. If I want Bijan Robinson, I could try a Bijan Robinson team here, but I think I'm just going to simply collect my Tyreek Hill. He was the best receiver in fantasy football up until the end of the year when CeeDee Lamb kind of took over. But I still think Tyreek Hill is one of the best players you can have on your fantasy teams. Good evening to JSC. He's asking, which is more likely to happen? Marvin Harrison Jr., top 5 receiver, or Malik Neighbors, top 15 receiver this year in 2024? Wow. I think I got to go with Malik Neighbors being a top 15 receiver. For Marvin Harrison Jr. to crack the top 5, I think he's going to need, 1,300 yards, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns, and, 90-some receptions. That's going to be incredibly difficult as a rookie receiver. We can even look at last year's numbers here. I want to see, did Puka Nacua even finish as a top 5 receiver last year? I think he was close. All right, Puka Nacua was wide receiver 4. He went off for 1,486 yards, 105 catches, 6 touchdowns. As a rookie, like this is going to be incredibly hard to beat, and that's kind of the line. You can see even AJ Brown, 106 catches, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns. So I think to be top 5, you need probably 1,300 to 1,400 yards minimum, and then pending touchdowns. So I don't think top 5 is likely for Marvin Harrison Jr. Whereas like wide receiver 15. Say we look at let's look at, because Deebo Samuel's a runner with added stats there. I think, 109 catches for Neighbors, probably not happening, but 81 catches can totally happen. 1,066 yards, that's fair. And then about 7 touchdowns. So probably more likely for Neighbors to be a top 15 receiver. And hey, good evening to Harris. Hope you're doing well. We're entering the second round of the draft now. After I took Tyreek Hill, you got Amon-Ra, you got JJ. I like getting that top 7, 8 pick, because you can wait for Bijan, you can wait for Breece Hall, or sometimes Amon-Ra, JJ falls in that range here. The back end of the first goes AJ Brown, Drake London, Nacua, and Garrett Wilson, which is a pretty good value at 12. Round 2 starts off with JT. There's the Marvin Harrison, Jahmyr Gibbs, Nico Collins, and Devontae Adams. I was doing a draft earlier today from the 5 spot, and I got Jahmyr Gibbs to come back to my Amon-Ra team, which was pretty cool. And hey, good evening to TB. Hope you're doing well, Tony. We're on deck at the moment, and I'm going to filter by ADP here. I wanted to we'll talk about it a little bit. Jalen Waddle just went off the board, but the number 1 faller from the last 7 days, it's been Jordan Addison, and I think Brandon Ayuk's going to be up there as well. We'll get to that in a second. But I could go Saquon Barkley. I can go Cooper Kupp, who's still a pretty good receiver. I like Brandon Ayuk, but he's been one of the fallers. So I'm going to slap in Saquon Barkley. I don't take a lot of Saquon Barkley, but I understand that I need more of him. But let me just look at the percent fallers, because Brandon Ayuk, when you factor by percentage, like he's only fallen 1.7 spots in ADP. But he was going at 18 overall back at the end of May, early June, and now he's sliding back to 24. He's dipping into the third round right now as he holds out with that contract. So percentage-wise, he's down about 7.5%, which is second most behind Jordan Addison. Tyreek Hill also falling, George Pickens, Jalen Waddle, some really interesting names here when you filter by percent. But I grabbed Saquon Barkley, and I'm not a huge Saquon Barkley guy this year, but he fits my mold of wanting to get a crack at a top 5 running back. And, I have a tough time picking between Kupp and Evans and Ayuk and Neighbors and Metcalf and Devonta Smith. So I'll kind of let them make some decisions for me. I'll grab Saquon Barkley at round 2 and see what we can grab at 28. JSC says he still feels like Hollywood is capable of being wide receiver 1. And yeah, that's kind of been the talk. Rashee Rice, it sounds like he might not get any discipline in 2024, which is kind of a big deal. They're going to run a lot of 2 and 3 wide receiver stuff. That means I don't think Hollywood Brown comes off the field a lot for them. I think it's going to be a lot of Rice, a lot of Hollywood Brown. Xavier Worthy is going to kind of rotate in 2 and 3 wide receiver sets. And I think Hollywood Brown, man, especially in a best ball format, that's kind of where you want Hollywood Brown. I feel better about Rashee Rice in a redraft league where I'm getting my 10 to 14 points every week. I think Hollywood Brown's going to be a lot more 7 8s and then have those big 20-point games. But anyways, we're up to pick here. I got Tyreek and Saquon Barkley. I could double dip at running back. I don't like to do that as much in best ball format. So I'm looking at Neighbors. I do like Devonta Smith quite a bit. It's probably between these 2 guys, and I think I need to get my Malik Neighbors shares up. So we'll take a pull here on Malik Neighbors as my wide receiver 2. And hey, if Malik Neighbors finishes top 15, I'm feeling pretty good about that there. TB says, who do you like better, Xavier Worthy or Christian Watson? I think you got to take Xavier Worthy, I think, because you're attached to a much better passing offense. I think the way the Packers are going to play, they're going to be good passing the ball. They're going to, throw for, low 4,000 passing yards, but they're going to be so spread out. I like the upside of Christian Watson, but I think Xavier Worthy, and he's been missing practices the last few games, but I think the pie is a little bit less spread out in Kansas City. You have Kelsey for sure, Rice, Hollywood, and then Worthy. Whereas Watson, we want to think of him as the number 2 receiver there, but I think any given game, it could be a Musgrave game, it could be a Reed game, it could be a Dontavian Wicks game or a Romeo Doubs game. There's literally so much there for the Packers that it's going to be hard to start those guys on a weekly basis, whereas I think Worthy, and he's more boom bust. In a redraft league, I probably don't really like drafting either one of these guys. They're probably more of a best ball pick where you're getting those spike weeks. So I don't love either guy in redraft league, but I think for redraft, I'll probably attach myself to Mahomes. JSC likes Christian Watson. And dude, if you told me Christian Watson stays healthy for the full season, I would say Christian Watson. I guess you can also argue that Xavier Worthy might not hold up for the full season. He's had hamstring injuries and he's missing some practice already too. So that's a tough question. Both guys are in that, high upside weekly ceiling games, but their floor games are 4 or 5 points based on what they do. I think Worthy excites me a little bit though, just maybe because he's the new shiny toy in Kansas City. And I think we could see some nice things happening in Kansas City. It really depends on your build. You don't want either of these guys as your starting wide receiver 3. I think you want them on your bench to see what can happen. I'll lean Worthy just because he's the fastest man in the NFL draft of all time. He's got some pretty nice highlights back at Texas, and he's on the Chiefs. It's very, very close, though. We'll see where they go in this draft. But we'll do some recapping here. After I took Neighbors, we got Achane, Devonta Smith, Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelce is now the clear tight end 1 in a lot of these drafts. Michael Pittman Jr. We had a David Montgomery sighting here at pick 34. That might have been a mistake here by in the queue. DJ Moore, Zay Flowers end up round 3. Beginning of round 4, you got George Pickens, Tank Dell, Christian Kirk, and then Jalen Hurts here stacked with A.J. Brown. So Pacheco is another one of those players that I like pulling in the 4th. Fourth round's pretty good this year. I feel almost better about a lot of the fourth round picks than I do the third, especially the back end of the third round picks. But I think round 4 is pretty consistent. You want to make sure you get just a quality name and make sure he's a big part of your team. There goes Josh Allen. Yeah, I think the quarterbacks in this range are pretty good. I'm not going to pull a Lamar Jackson or Pat Mahomes at my range here, but there are some guys that I like coming up here. So we'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. I think let me look here on this Worthy Watson question, because right now Christian Watson goes pick 66 and Worthy goes pick 69. So they're kind of in the same tier. And as long as Watson's healthy, I think you might have convinced me to take Watson right now, just because I've seen Watson live. I've seen him play and dominate and be kind of that deep ball threat. I really like what the Packers are doing. This one's not close to me. I'm going to go Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, he's the clear number 1 or number 2 target in that offense on a given week, whereas Hollywood Brown sometimes could be the 1, 2, or 3, and sometimes even the 4th. Depends on who's having a big game. Whereas I think Zay Flowers is going to be more consistent week to week and be a big part of that offense. But we're up to pick here. I don't take a lot of Amari Cooper. He was holding out for a deal. He got paid. He got an upgrade here. I think he's probably the clear number 1 receiver that I'm going to take. And I get him as my number 3 receiver, which feels pretty good. Amari Cooper, a lot of people forget how good he is of a receiver. And I think the Browns are going to lean a little bit more pass heavy this year, just being without Nick Chubb. They got a collection of Jerome Ford, Deonta Foreman. Nyheim Hines is there. A lot of interesting running backs on the roster there without Nick Chubb. So I think they're going to lean a little pass happy, and I will gladly take Cooper as my number 3. I like McLaurin there a lot too. I think Cooper and McLaurin are in kind of the same tier where they're just really quality receivers, and I just want to continue to make sure I make good picks at that range. I would have maybe considered Travis Etienne, but I like my build so far with the 3 QBs and the 1 running back, or the 3 receivers and the 1 running back. And we'll see what bounces back to us. I have a couple guys in mind that I need to make sure I keep taking, because I don't have enough of them in my shares. This is my 50th draft in the $15 contest, so I need to make sure I'm clicking on everybody a good amount of times. And yeah, we'll see here. Hollywood Brown, JSC, he's still on the board at pick 49. And Zay Flowers went at 36. I think you routinely see in these drafts, Zay Flowers goes end of round 3. Sometimes he falls into the 4th round. Really promising end to his rookie season, where he stepped up and he was the lead target without a Mark Andrews being in there. Even though Mark Andrews back, I still think Zay Flowers is going to operate as the 1A, 1B in that offense for the passing pie. So, and TB also says Zay Flowers. But we're entering the 5th round now. I really wanted to click on Keenan Allen. I think I prefer taking Keenan Allen at the 4-5 turn versus taking DJ Moore. DJ Moore fell pretty far in this one to pick 35, but DJ Moore usually goes around pick 30. I think I like clicking Keenan Allen in round 5 more than I like DJ Moore round 3. T. Higgins is falling a little bit here, which is interesting. We'll see if the Jamar Chase team takes T. Higgins. I mentioned liking Pat Mahomes. I mentioned liking Mark Andrews. They give me both options there. I miss on T. Higgins. I can take our Hollywood Brown here, but part of me wants to make sure I get a top 5 tight end locked in. I get Mark Andrews and Dalton Kincaid on the board here. I'm just going to spread it out and go Dalton Kincaid. Even though he's not stacked with Josh Allen, I can still take Kincaid and feel happy about it. So this one, JSC, it's a matter of how comfortable you are with risk. Devon Achane's a pretty small back. And he missed games throughout the year last year already. He's one of the best running backs per touch last year that we've seen in a very long time. And I think he's going to have a lot of those big spike weeks again this year. The question is, can he hold up for a full season? I don't know if he can. Saquon Barkley has also had some injury risks, but I think just one being on a much better organization in Philadelphia with a great offensive line. That's one of the top 5 offensive lines in the league. He's also going to be getting a lot more opportunities to just make good plays because he's on a better team. I know the goal line opportunities for him aren't going to be great with Jalen Hurts there, but if Saquon Barkley is able to punch those touchdowns in from 4 or 5 yards away, all of a sudden less tush pushes go to Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley to me is a much safer pick. I think if you're swinging for the home run fences, you go with Achane. But I think Saquon Barkley is going to be a huge asset to the Eagles this year. And even though he's going to lose some goal line touches potentially, I still think you want to go with Saquon Barkley. And yeah, man, as a Packer guy, I don't love it. The Bears they've literally pulled every right, like they've hit all the good switches, all the good levers this offseason, and they're giving Caleb Williams a really good opportunity to kind of do what CJ Stroud did last year as a rookie. I mean, you're talking DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, and a couple other good backs there too. Like it's a really good recipe here for a rookie quarterback. And Keenan Allen, man, I mean, we saw Keenan Allen play with Justin Herbert a few years back as a rookie, and that went pretty well here. So I actually think Keenan Allen could be the leading receiver in Chicago. And I'm kind of flipping on that because I thought DJ Moore was my preferred guy, but I'm realizing that I'm a little light on Keenan Allen. I want to get more shares of Keenan. But hey, we're moving into the 6th round. We got Anthony Richardson, 6th round, George Kittle here, a couple of receivers, Jaden Reed, DeAndre Hopkins. Jaden Reed's falling a little bit, but I have a feeling he's going to start rising again as he's in practice and making plays and headlines. He just missed a little bit and he was able to get through with his what's it called? His physical today. He was able to pass. So he's going to be on the field soon. But I'm up to pick here. I'm going to take Alvin Kamara. This is a guy that's been rising. I'm at pick 69 here, and his ADP 66. I did see today that Kendre Miller left practice for the Saints, and he's struggled with injuries last year. And Alvin Kamara, really good receiving back. I think either way, even if his metrics are declining, he's still going to get volume. He's kind of like a poor man's Rachaad White at this point, and I don't mind clicking on Alvin Kamara here. And I can always, tack on Kendre Miller later if I want to just secure the Saints running back workload. But I'm going to start clicking on Alvin Kamara a little bit more as my RB2-3. And I did pass on Xavier Worthy here. We'll see if he can slide back to us. We do see Rome Odunze, Evan Ingram go. I feel pretty good about my balanced start. We got 3 really good receivers, Tyreek, Neighbors, and Cooper. And then my running backs I feel pretty good about with Barkley and Alvin Kamara. We do have some outs with some quarterback stacks later in the draft, whether it's Tua and Deshaun Watson. I can maybe, tack on Rashid Shaheed and a couple Saints guys to get something going on there, which could be nice. And yeah, I was tempted to take Achane there at 28, but in these best ball drafts, I really don't like getting 2 running backs early. I think I want to receivers go so much higher in best ball leagues because you get to start 3 of them and potentially 4 of them with a flex. So I think continuing to hammer wide receivers would be my priority. But Achane, man, I have a good amount of Achane round 3. I think he's one of the best ball picks you can make. We see a run of rookie receivers here: Rome Odunze, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., Jackson Smith, and the Jigba. And that leaves me with Xavier Worthy, which I know he's small, but he's attached to Pat Mahomes, man. He's going to make some big plays for us. I think getting Worthy as my wide receiver 4, we'll have fun with that. And even if he's not being consistent in my best ball format here, I'm going to grab another couple of receivers here that will compete for my flex duties with Worthy. So we'll grab Worthy here, and we probably made this guy pretty mad here with the Pat Mahomes team as he's running no stacked Pat Mahomes. But I'm feeling good about our draft here. We'll probably look at some running backs. I don't know if I want to look at QBs when it comes back around. I kind of think we should maybe wait for Tua Tagovailoa, and we could potentially. I'm not going to mess with Daniel Jones and the Malik Neighbors stack. I think the Deshaun Watson stack's in play. I also think the Derek Carr, maybe we grab Rashid Shaheed with one of our next picks coming up. I am starting to cool off on Ramondre Stevenson. I know he's rising after he signed his big deal and extension with the Patriots, but I really struggle with the Patriots, man. I just don't think they're going to be a good team. I think they're a bottom offensive line. And they're going to struggle, man. We might also see Jacoby Brissett play half the year. Who knows how long he's going to stay in there. I think Drake May's exciting, but the Patriots kind of feel like they're eating it this year. Zamir White's another one of those rising backs that used to get in the 8th round all the time. I think I want to take more Zamir White. I also want to hear more from Raiders camp to see how that running back load is looking. And then you got a little bit of Keon Coleman, who he sounded like he had a nice day in practice today. It sounded like Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman both had a good day, but Josh Allen was dealing to everybody. I saw reports on Shakir. I saw reports on Curtis Samuel, even Dawson Knox. It sounded like everybody was eating at the Buffalo practice today. And then James Conner, man. I know a lot of people like Trey Benson, but James Conner's still good. I think he was a league winner down the stretch last year. He's going to have a hard time. Trey Benson's going to have a hard time stealing touches from James Conner. So I like grabbing Conner as my RB3 or 4. And then DeAndre Swift, he's another guy that I need to take more of. I haven't been clicking on him a lot in these best ball drafts, but I think as we get into August, I will be clicking on more DeAndre Swift as my RB3 or whatever. And then look at CJ Stroud, man. He falls pretty hard these days. Sometimes into the 8th round, I've seen a couple times. You got Aaron Jones and Cortland Sutton here. We're starting to pivot more towards running backs as we get to the 8th, 9th round range. This is kind of I call it running back alley. This is my favorite spot to pull RB2s and 3s and 4s. And hopefully my receiver core has been built out by then. I have 4 good ones. I don't know if I need any more with these next 2 picks, but we'll continue to evaluate and figure it out. Kyler Murray's getting some good value here. He's 80th ADP. It's pick 87. I don't have any stacks with Kyler Murray, but he's one of my favorite quarterback clicks, especially if I have Marvin or Trey McBride. I think that's a really good call. He could be a top 5 QB this year. I'm curious what you guys think in the chat. I don't think the Cardinals are going to win a lot of games just because it's hard to name a lot of players on their defense and their offensive line. But I think for fantasy, we'll see Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, James Conner, and a couple other guys have nice seasons. Kind of slowing down here in the 8th round. We got Curtis Samuel off the board, Najee Harris, Jameson Williams. And again, I mentioned I'm not really into quarterbacks here, but if they keep letting Kyler Murray fall, that might be the move. And there's a handful of guys I can backdoor with Arizona, whether it's Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, a running back or 2. We can maybe have fun with that. I don't need to force it, though, because I do like Zach Moss here. And yeah, man, James Conner, I love James Conner. He helped me win 2 dynasty championships last year. And I think he's still good. And obviously he's got injury risk, but name one running back that doesn't have injury risk at this point. So we're up to pick here. Kyler Murray, man, falling hard down the board. I could take Zach Moss here, who I like as just like an RB3 type. And I'll probably land on there. Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow. These guys are all great picks. They don't really align with any of my team stacks right now. I should probably just take Kyler Murray, though, because this value is pretty dang good. That's what we're going to do. We're going to take Kyler Murray here. I can't say no. I think he's the top 5 upside QB. I also think Dak and Joe Burrow are top 5 upside quarterbacks and can't complain with either one of those guys. So we'll land on Kyler Murray. It looks like team 3 grabs his Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack. And we'll see what bounces back around the corner. Yeah, man, I think the Cardinals are going to be one of those teams that lose a lot of games, but because their defense is so bad, they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, and they're going to have to play a lot deep into the 4th quarter, rally ball kind of thing. So maybe that's talking against James Conner. But I still think James Conner can catch the ball a lot and be a big asset through the air, but I think the Cardinals are one of those teams that I think have the bottom is in. I think they're on the way up and up. And we do see Joe Burrow, Zach Moss, Dak Prescott all come off the board. I have a well-balanced team. I got my 1 top 5 option at QB. I have Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara. Maybe one of those guys is a top 5 back every week. And then Tyreek Hill, Neighbors, Cooper, and Xavier Worthy. I think that's a pretty solid wide receiver group. I want to get some more guys to compete with Worthy for my wide receiver 4. And then I do like Dalton Kincaid a lot as my tight end 1. We see Tony Pollard. I would have considered David Njoku had he come back just to keep building out a Cleveland thing. And then Brock Bowers does go there. So I'm going to keep leaning into the Saints. We're going to go Rashid Shaheed, who just got a nice payday himself. He was a Pro Bowl return man. He got a 1-year, $5.2 million contract extension the other day. And he's a good player. I think, he's got these spike weeks built in, 15, 18, 24, 18, 10, 19. I think we're going to probably see a little bit more consistency out of him this year as he steps into his year 3 season. I think Rashid Shaheed's a guy that I like in best ball quite a bit. So now it looks like we're kind of on coast. We could look for more New Orleans Saints players. Obviously, we don't have Chris Olave, but I could maybe grab a falling Kendra Miller. I'm assuming he's going to fall today. Maybe Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson, Derek Carr. I think the Saints are a pretty underrated team. But round 9 is always weird. You always see some weird stuff happening here. We see Jonathan Brooks falling now into the 9th round. At one point he was going in the 80s. And now that he's officially on the camp PUP list to start training camp, he's going to keep falling. You got Brian Robinson, who I do like. I like Brian Robinson, but I'm a little bit worried about the running game in Washington. I don't know how many games they're going to win. They have one of the worst offensive lines, if not the worst, in football. So I kind of prefer Austin Eckler 2 rounds later. And then Jordan Love, yes. Tyler Lockett's a good number 4, number 5. And then Brock Purdy keeps inching up draft boards from what I can tell. And then there goes Jaden Daniels. So we'll look to, when it comes back around, I'd like to peek at the running backs because those are going to fizzle up pretty soon. I feel good about my receiver depth. We just probably need 3 or 4 more. But we gotta make some headway here on the running back depth. I think David Montgomery is still going to get his touchdowns as long as he's healthy. I think both guys have double-digit touchdown upside. The biggest thing going for Gibbs is, does he take a huge second-year leap or not? Either way, I think David Montgomery will get his touches. I don't like taking David Montgomery in best ball leagues. I think he's better redraft guy where I'm like, yeah, I just want my 12 points. I want my 72 yards rushing and chance at a touchdown. But I'm with you. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is one of those guys that I want to be on his side. I want to see him improve because he wasn't really good in a lot of the metrics last year, whether it's rushing or receiving. And I think he can improve upon that this year and be an even better player. And hopefully, they didn't trust him at all to pass protect last year. That was all David Montgomery earlier. So we might see less David Montgomery on the field this year than we saw last year, which would be a huge win for Jahmyr Gibbs. Zamir White or James Conner. I think James Conner's the better back because he catches passes. Zamir White didn't really he had one game last year with 4 or 5 catches. But it sounds like they want to make sure they have someone that can catch passes there, whether it's Dylan Lobby or Alexander Madison, who's a trusty pass protection guy. I'm going to lean James Conner a little bit here just because I think I like the Cardinals offense better in a few other spots there. Jerome Ford, Trey Benson, Jerry Jeudy. Tell you what, we're gonna grab Jerry Jeudy and we're gonna see what running back comes back around because now I got a little. I have it in right now on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. I can still go after Derek Carr and get 3 quarterbacks. I think Watson and Carr would be great behind Kyler Murray. And then we're just gonna. Now at this point we're on coast. We're gonna keep slamming running backs here. But if Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara hold up, we're looking pretty good with this team. I was looking at Chase Brown pretty heavily there. Chase Brown did rip off a couple big runs, and he's been getting a lot of buzz in training camp from the coaches right now. So I think I still like Zach Moss to be the first and second down back. But I think both Bengals backs. If you think about it, the last 5 years. We've been drafting Joe Mixon in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round of fantasy drafts, and now we can get Moss and Chase Brown in the 8th and 10th round. I think with Zamir White and James Conner, if you go kind of empty running back with your draft, and you say you have one running back and you're in the 7th, 8th round, that's where James Conner and Zamir White look pretty good. I don't think Zamir White is a best ball pick for me though, because he doesn't catch passes. If you look at his numbers from last year when he was the starter, 13, 15, 14, 17. He's kind of like David Montgomery was last year, where he's racking up a lot of touches, getting yards, but he's not a big receiving threat. I think he can catch the ball, and that would be nice to see him do that. But I think I'm going to lean with James Conner. And we're back up to pick here. I could grab Tua to put with Tyreek, but I don't think we need to do that. We've already got Kyler Murray on the team, and we like some of our outs later in the draft. So I could grab the backup Trey Benson here. I'm going to grab Blake Corum. I feel better about Corum over Benson just because I like the Rams running attack more than I like the Cardinals, and I still think James Conner is going to hold on to that job as the starter. Whereas Blake Corum, some are saying he might be better than Kyren Williams. All of his measurables are better, and he's a bell cow back from a national championship team. And if anything happens to Kyren Williams, man, I think we got full steam ahead for Blake Corum with the Los Angeles Rams there. That's true, but James Conner has done this for several years with the Arizona Cardinals. It's like whenever he's missing games and he comes back, like he's a tank. If we look at his PPR numbers from the last few seasons, he's been with Cardinals for the last 3 years, 15, and 17 points per game. But if you look what he did down the stretch last year, 22, 17, 22, 26, and 30. He started the year fine, but they kind of fizzled out in the middle of the year. But he did the same thing in 2022. He was a league winning back from about like week 9 on 11, 23, 13, 23, 23, 18, 25, and 14. And then the year before that, another league winning season, 40, 15, 20, 19, 33, 9, 27, 9.4. He's a guy that for 3 straight years, he's been helping people win fantasy championships. And I think in a best ball format, where you're covering your bases with your running backfield, you can probably support 4 missed games from a guy like James Conner and still be okay. But I still think he's one of the most underrated backs in football. He has a pretty good rapport with Kyler Murray. He catches the ball really well, and he can also just dominate games running the ball as well. And I don't know if we've seen enough from Zamir White to say that he's better than a James Conner type, but I really like James Conner. And he might be slowing down. That might be true. They did draft Trey Benson, and we'll watch for Trey Benson in training camp. But either way, I think week 1, you're going to see a lot of James Conner and not a lot of Trey Benson, but I could be wrong there. Just the Cardinals have traditionally always ran heavy with one running back. And then that has been James Conner for the last few seasons. But anyways, we're moving into the 12th round here. After I take Blake Corum, we see Josh Downs, Jared Goff, Trey Benson, Jack Charbonnet, Pat Freiermuth, Dalton Schultz, Rico Dowdle, and Mike Williams. And Nick Chubb's moving up boards. A lot of people saw that weightlifting video of him. I think he was squatting just a bunch of weight. He is on the PUP list to start the year, so he's out, for training camp for as long as he can. And then I'm assuming he's going to miss the first 4 games of the season on PUP, but I could be wrong there. And hey, JSC, I've been meaning to tell you, my man, you got to turn your comments on for your videos. Nobody can comment on them. I was trying to do some of that, but it said comments were ineligible. So on your YouTube, you should look and see if you can turn those switches on. But we're moving into the 12th round here. Tua Tagovailoa is falling quite a bit. That could be kind of fun. I could Kendre Miller. It looks like Tua just went off the board. Kendre Miller falling because he got hurt today at practice. And, if he returns back to practice tomorrow, this could look really stupid. So I'm just gonna take Kendre Miller and lock him up with Alvin Kamara. I have the Saints backfield now. I also have Rashid Shaheed, so we're building out a little bit of a Saints offensive thing here. And now I have 4 running backs: Barkley, Kamara, Corum, and Kendre Miller. That feels pretty good to me. I could target some of the backups in Philadelphia, whether it's Will Shipley or Kenneth Gainwell. I don't know if I need to do that, but I'm open to it if the board looks that way. But we're moving at the 12th round here. Darnell Mooney, Justin Herbert, Jermaine Burton off the board. I could look at Taysom Hill, who I think, no matter how you feel about Taysom Hill, you open up his game logs in a best ball format and you see 11, 11, 15, 20, 22, 16, 12. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games last year that he would have started for me at tight end. And I have Dalton Kincaid, so I don't need to force Taysom Hill. It looks like he did go 145 anyways, but I think Taysom Hill, especially in a best story about his, his low lows, I think Taysom Hill's kind of fun. Where are you guys at in the chat with Kamani Vidal? I do not know what to do with the Chargers backfield yet. I think Gus Edwards is going to lead the team in carries. I don't know if J.K. Dobbins or Kamani Vidal are going to eat into that workload at all, or I don't know who's going to be the third down back. I think it's an interesting group, but I honestly have no way of knowing how that backfield is going to shake out. I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to make it back to me. So I'm going to pull Deshaun Watson here. And a lot of these guys I don't really care for, whether it's I don't really feel great about any of these guys. I took Watson over Cousins and Stafford, which is fine. I do think Watson was better than people think he was last year. Like for fantasy numbers, they were fine. 20, 11, 21. I think he got hurt in this game. 18 and 9 and 16. So fantasy-wise, he's going to continue to add those rushing stats. And I just think, I already have Cooper and Jerry Jeudy on the team. So we got Watson in there. We'll look for Derek Carr. And we'll kind of build out this Cardinals, Cleveland, Saints team. I want to look and see if there's any other Cardinals that I feel good about. I think Michael Wilson's going to be a nice number 2 receiver for the team. I think Zay Jones could be that guy too. I think Greg Dortch in the slot makes sense here too. So maybe we take some pulls on these guys late in the draft. If I look around real quick let's look at Cleveland. I could grab Elijah Moore or Cedric Tillman late in the draft. I'm not big on Deonta Foreman, but I can see it there. And then for the Saints, I think we're all kind of done with everybody but Derek Carr. I can maybe add on Jawan Johnson late in the draft and see how that goes. But overall, our build is kind of done, and we'll just have kind of fun filling in the blanks. After I went with Watson, I haven't seen a single – there's not a lot of news on Kamani Vidal. I want to see how he's doing. It sounds like they're giving J.K. Dobbins the RB2 spot. And he goes, he hasn't been clicked yet. He's all the way down here. I have not taken a lot of J.K. Dobbins just because, they gave him $50,000 guaranteed to be on the team for this training camp. I don't know if he's going to make the team. They could easily cut a guy that's making $50K. But Dobbins, man, he's just had the knee injuries and the Achilles injury the last couple of years. I don't know if I want to burn a spot and then him not even make the team. But it sounds like they're giving him the chance to be the RB2 to start the year. So I am going to be watching the Chargers running backs very, very closely. Even Gus Edwards, he was coming off of, I think it was a shoulder surgery. So a team that's going to run the ball a lot, I want to make sure I'm paying attention to that team. But we're moving into the 14th round now. Wan'Dale Robinson made some headlines today because he was heavily involved with the team. He's an interesting player because he was coming off a bad ACL injury last year, and he was about 10 fantasy points per game. He's not a big guy. He's not a big play guy either, but he racks up touches, and the ability for him to get open is pretty good. I think he's a guy that can catch 4 or 5 passes a game, maybe get a carry or 2. And just kind of be like a poor man's Curtis Samuel. So keep an eye on Wan'Dale. And then we missed on Michael Wilson, unfortunately. I've seen him fall a lot later. But also Ricky Pearsall. It sounds not good, man. I think we might be seeing like a redshirt season out of Ricky Pearsall this year, unfortunately. It looks like Matthew Stafford's falling pretty hard here. I don't take a lot of Tyler Algier. I'm not a big Tyler Algier fan. I could reach on my guy J.K. Dobbins here. I'm not a big Hunter Henry guy right now. Not a lot here that I like on this board. I could take some stabs at the Denver receivers. I got 4 seconds to do the job. We're going to grab Bucky Irving. I don't know why. We just grabbed Bucky Irving here. The number 2 running back in Tampa Bay. We'll see how he does. He's small, but he's a good pass catcher. He could potentially take some of the work off Vidal's or off Rachaad White's plate, but I think Bucky Irving, on the bench, we'll see what he can do. Drafting Vidal as handcuffed to Gus Edwards. I like it. And yeah, I really want to watch the Chargers preseason games because we know they want to run the ball. We just don't know the pecking order of things. So I don't mind taking Kamani Vidal shots right now. Round 13, I think it's a fair price. It could be nothing, but who knows? What if he's really good? What if he's a role player? Who knows? Geno Smith, Matthew Stafford, and then J.K. Dobbins off the board. I don't mind maybe taking a shot here on Noah Fant. I like Marvin Mims kind of a lot to be a potential wide receiver 1 for the Broncos. I don't know if I trust Courtland Sutton. He's an easy trade candidate for them as well. I think taking shots on either Troy Franklin or Marvin Mims is kind of exciting. I really like Mims. I want to see him get more involved. And if he was blocked by Jerry Jeudy last year, Jerry Judy's gone. Marvin Mims could be their starting slot receiver this year. So I'm kind of interested a little bit there. I don't know if I like taking Tyler Algier or Antonio Gibson here. We've built out a decent running back group. We have 5 guys here, so I'm probably looking to go tight end or wide receiver with this next pick. And Noah Fant goes. So that leaves me with, have you guys seen the reports on Rashad Bateman here? We're going to pull Rashad Bateman, but he was in the news today because it was yesterday. He turned in an impressive effort during Monday's training camp report. It was raining, and I guess he was just catching a lot of passes. He recorded a catch Monday while falling to his back, grabbing the ball off his shoelaces in the process. John Harbaugh said he's expected to be a top receiver in this league for us. We haven't seen it consistently out of Rashad Bateman. He's a former first-round pick. I like the Ravens' passing offense this year a lot. And outside of Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers, that wide receiver 3 role is completely wide open. They brought in Devontae Walker, who's an interesting rookie late. They still have Nelson Aguilar late. But it sure sounds like they're giving Rashad Bateman every chance to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets with Zay Flowers. So I'll take a shot on Bateman here. And we're going to need some backup tight ends soon. And we'll probably line up Derek Carr. So I wasn't sure on that one because it was kind of vague. It said undisclosed. It says he should return to practice relatively soon. So not sure what that means. He's on the non-football injury illness list for the start of training camp. So, maybe there was a death in the family or something that he had to attend to. Something, sometimes that happens. A non-football injury / illness. Maybe he's sick, something like that. I'm not scared of, this for Antonio Gibson. I'm not sure if I want to draft Patriots running backs this year. I think their offensive line is one of the worst in the league, and you're going to have Jacoby Brissett and Drake May as your quarterbacks here. I just don't know if it's going to be a fruitful situation. If Ramondre goes down, yeah, maybe Antonio Gibson can be a guy that makes a lot of sense as a stash play. But as long as Ramondre and Gibson are healthy, I don't know how that backfield's going to look. I'm thinking they want to use Ramondre as their first and second down banger and sprinkle in Gibson on third downs and maybe 2-minute drill type stuff. So maybe there's some room for Gibson, but I think I think I'm just kind of out on Patriots backs. So right now, because it's training camp, there's a training camp pup list, and then once we get closer to the regular season, I think after the third final preseason game, that's when teams start putting players on the PUP list for the regular season. So once we start getting rosters trimmed down for camp cuts, you're going to start seeing, he's placed on the regular season PUP list. So for now, none of it really matters. As far as missing games, it's just kind of like a practicality. But we're on the clock right now. I think Gibson's falling pretty hard here, so I'm going to take him. It's pick 189, and his ADP is 166, so I'm not really understanding that one. So I'll grab Gibson here as my RB6. That feels pretty good to me. I did miss on Derek Carr, so I'm happy I grabbed Deshaun Watson. I don't know if I need a third QB, honestly. I have Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson. I can maybe load up on some other picks. I don't mind Isaiah Likely as part of my tight end rotation. I don't draft Ben Sinnott. He's Kyle Juszczyk, I think, for the Commanders this year. You should be drafting Zach Ertz if you're drafting best ball leagues right now. And then my guy, Juwan Johnson, still on the board. Braylon Allen falling pretty far here too. His ADP is 185 and it's pick 194 right now. I don't need a running back. I think I'm probably looking at one of the tight ends or maybe a receiver here if I could. On deck here, please don't take my mans. All right, we get Isaiah Likely here, who I like quite a bit. I think he's going to have some spike weeks even if Mark Andrews is healthy. And if there's a chance that Mark Andrews misses time, I think Isaiah Likely is a top 10 tight end. I don't think he's a top 5 tight end, but he played pretty well in relief of Mark Andrews last year. We pull up his numbers here. Let's see. Looks like from week 14 to about 20, 19, 18, 8, 18, 11, 11. A lot of touchdowns. The dude was just catching a ton of touchdowns. If you remove the touchdowns, the numbers probably aren't that good, but I think he is, I got Bateman and Likely. There's a good chance that one of those guys catches a touchdown every week or every other week for me. So I'm happy kind of adding Ravens here at the back end of this team. So far, we got 2 quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, my running back, Saquon Barkley, and Alvin Kamara. I feel really good about that top 2 duo. And then we're just going to be kind of feeling it out for RB3. Blake Corum, Kendra Miller, Bucky Irving, and Antonio Gibson. I think it's enough for a full season. I don't know if I need to draft another one. My receivers, we need to keep probably 1 or 2 more guys yet here, but I have Tyreek Hill, Malik Neighbors, and Amari Cooper as my top 3, which I feel pretty strongly about. And then our flex competition at receiver is Worthy, Rashid Shaheed, Jerry Jeudy, and Rashad Bateman. So not too bad of a list. And then Dalton Kincaid, Isaiah Likely at tight end. So we'll kind of round it out here. I know Juwan Johnson is hurt right now. He's on the active PUP list here. He's recovering from a foot surgery. Still don't know when he's going to be back. Don't know if he's going to be back ready for week 1. But, I mean, I got Dalton Kincaid. So, as long as Kincaid's healthy for the first 4 weeks or so, maybe we get Juwan Johnson back on this team and we have that secondary Saints thing built out. Even though we don't have Derek Carr, I still want to be kind of choosing teams that I believe in. Otherwise, guys, it happened today. You guys, if you've watched my stuff in this summer, you guys know I've been in on Mike Gesicki this year. And I was so happy to see this tweet today from Jeremy Rock. Joe Burrow is looking for Mike Gesicki early and often. I'm not a big Mike Gesicki guy. I've never been a fan of Mike Gesicki, but he's attached to Joe Burrow this year. Tyler Boyd leaves a ton of slot reps available for Jamar Chase and Mike Gesicki. So we'll see what happens there. I can maybe pull him, but he just goes 208. Brockster says, if you're comfortable with the Cards Jets matchup week 10, I think 2 QBs is fine. It doesn't bother me as much. I think, just even with Kyler Murray's rushing ability, he should still be able to have a decent game. If I look at his numbers real quick from last year, a bad Kyler Murray game is going to be 11 points here against Pittsburgh. He played some good defenses in this stretch too. Like San Francisco, he still got 13 points. Pittsburgh 11 points. I think I don't hate it. I could grab one of these guys here, but JJ, look at the quarterbacks: McCarthy, Fields. That might be like a roster clog spot instead of like an actual good pick. So we'll just take our lumps there if we have to. I'll take Juwan Johnson here. I like to draft as the team that I'm drafting is correct. Like Kyler Murray is going to have a top 5 season. He's going to beat the Jets that week. He's going to put up 22 points or something like that. So that's kind of my vision here. I think with this team, I'm saying Kyler Murray's the top 5 QB. Deshaun Watson's a fringe top 12 QB, and that's all I need to get me to where I need to go. I don't know if McCarthy could be good down the stretch. Justin Fields could be starting down the stretch. I actually think Aiden O'Connell's going to be the starter for the Raiders. But I don't know if these guys add anything significant to my team. I'm assuming Kyler Murray and Watson will get the job done for me. I got Kincaid Likely and Deontay Johnson. I'm not opposed to grabbing a 4th tight end. Actually, it sounded like Greg Dulcich was making some headway today. I'm just going to grab Greg Dulcich. I haven't drafted him a ton. But it sounded like he was looking good in training camp for the Broncos today. If we start seeing more reports about him being the inline receiving tight end or whatever, that could be kind of fun. So we got 4 tight ends here. I do have one more pick left here, so we'll grab one more receiver to finish the draft. And this is not a normal build for me. 2 quarterbacks, 6 running backs. I'm going to finish with 8 wideouts and 4 tight ends. I usually don't grab 4 tight ends, but I kind of wanted to just experiment a little bit there and grab, Juwan Johnson, who I don't draft a lot, and Greg Dulcich, who I don't draft a lot either. And then to finish it off at receiver, we could grab Elijah Moore, who pairs with Deshaun Watson. We could grab Calvin Austin, I think is interesting for the Steelers. One more thought on this, though. I was looking at the drafters' top 10 finishers from last season in this contest, and the majority of teams had 2 quarterbacks. So these are the top 10 formats. Only 3 teams in the top 10 had 3 quarterbacks. Most of these teams had 6 running backs. You can see the averages right here: 2.3 QBs, 6.2 running backs, 8.5 receivers, and 3 tight ends. Only one team drafted 4 tight ends, and it was the winner. But I try to use this as my baseline, a 2-6-8-3, and then I adjust it. If I need a 3rd QB, if I need a 9th receiver, if I need a 7th. I usually don't do 7 running backs, but you can see sometimes 7 running backs work. So I try to stay within these numbers for when I'm drafting, and I try to do 2 quarterbacks. If I do 3 quarterbacks, it's because I kind of waited on quarterback and I needed some competition there at QB 2 and 3. But I think Murray and Watson are enough for me. I could easily grab I could grab one more guy here and see how it goes at the end. But I think I feel okay with this team. Fields, Darnold, and then we're kind of junk. What do you guys think the over/under games that Jacoby Brissett starts this year? I think I'm going to put it at 7.5 games. If you take the over/under, let me know. But we'll finish up with wide receiver here. It looks like I missed on my Elijah Moore just now. That's fine. I do have Cedric Tillman last year, who's like a wide receiver 3-4 for the Cleveland Browns, but I don't know if I need to do that. I do like Calvin Austin as a potential wide receiver 2-3 for the Steelers, even though I don't like the Steelers that much. I'm going to say F it. We're going to go with Cedric Tillman. We're going to say we're going to catch at least a touchdown every week from Deshaun Watson with Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Cedric Tillman. But there you have it. There is our team. That was my 50th draft in the Drafters 3. Our quarterbacks are Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson. I feel like I have a top 5 QB every week, whether it's Murray or Watson. And I know a lot of people don't like Watson, but he still played well enough for fantasy football last year to be a low-end QB1. I'm banking on Kamara and Barkley riding this team to the fantasy glory land here. Blake Corum, Kendra Miller, Bucky Irving, and Antonio Gibson. One of these guys can maybe make it for me based on if their starter goes down or something like that. Receivers, I feel good about the top 3, Tyreek, Neighbors, and Cooper. And then I like the depth competition here for wide receiver 4 and 5. Worthy, Shaheed, Jeudy, Bateman, and Tillman. And then I have Dalton Kincaid hopefully starting every week for me at tight end, and then likely Juwan and Greg Dulcich to round out at tight end there. So I think it's fine. I'd say it's a B-. Broadster's saying the under 7.5 games here. Harris also taking the under. I don't think he starts at all. Interesting. So I would take that bet with you, Harris. I would take that bet that Jacoby Brissett is starting week 1. And then TB says over. 7.5 is a good number because, guys, the Patriots, one, they're not winning the Super Bowl this year. They're not going to the playoffs this year. They're developing talent this year. That's what's most important. They want to see what they got from James Polk or Jalen Polk. They want to see what Demario Douglas looks like for a full year. They want to see what some of these running backs look like together. And if Jacoby Brissett is starting for a month or two, I'm not going to be surprised because Drake May needs to learn. And they also don't want to throw him to the wolves. We've seen that go bad for a lot of quarterbacks. And honestly, man, the path to sitting for a year or two, and I don't think Drake May is going to sit for a year, but the longer you sit, I think it's a good thing. We've seen it with Mahomes. We've seen it with Jordan Love. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen it with a ton of guys, and it's translated to pretty good success. So I think I'm willing to be patient to see Drake May as long as he's looking good in practice for them. That's all that matters. And again, their offensive line is one of the worst in the leagues. I don't think you want to get Drake May killed, in September. So let Jacoby Brissett take those lumps, that kind of thing. But either way, that was a fun little draft on a Wednesday night here. I think next week I'm gone on Tuesday night. We're headed to the Brewers-Braves game. But Monday night and Wednesday night, I will be doing some mock draft live streams. If you guys want to hang out with me, I think those will be my next live streams. But I have to keep getting these projection videos done. I have the AFC West and the NFC West yet. So be on the lookout for those. Check those out. There's a playlist somewhere on my page where you guys can check out all 32 team projections. But either way, thank you for your time. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Check out Drafters if you have not. There's a promo code in the description. And have a good rest of your evening. We'll see you next time. Peace.